Lerato walked home from school on a scorching afternoon, her mind preoccupied with the never-ending struggles her family faced. Her township in South Africa was vibrant but marred by poverty, and she felt a growing desire to find a way out. As she wandered off the beaten path near her school, an unusual glint caught her eye. She knelt and brushed aside the dirt, uncovering an old, rusted sign that read, "Danger. Diamond Mine." Her heart raced. She had heard stories about abandoned mines in the area, but she never imagined stumbling upon one herself. Curiosity piqued, she pushed through the overgrown vegetation to find a narrow entrance, almost concealed by bushes. The thought of what lay inside was exhilarating. Could this be her family's ticket to a better life? That night, she could hardly sleep. Visions of sparkling diamonds lighting up her dreams. The next day, Lerato confided in her closest friends, Nomsa and Sipho. Skeptical but intrigued, they agreed to help her explore the mine. The trio felt a mix of excitement and apprehension as they planned their first venture into the hidden depths, unaware that this discovery would alter their lives forever. With flashlights and makeshift tools, Lerato, Nomsa, and Sipho ventured into the mine. The air grew colder as they descended, the narrow tunnel walls pressing in on them. Dust floated in their beams of light, giving the space an eerie atmosphere. As they delved deeper, their nerves began to fray, but Lerato's determination kept them moving. After an hour of careful exploration, they stumbled upon a chamber that made them gasp. Embedded in the rock walls were small, glittering stones. Diamonds. Nomsa clutched Lerato's arm, her voice trembling. "This is real. We could change everything." But as they marveled at their find, Sipho's caution surfaced. "We don't know who owns this mine. What if it's dangerous?" Lerato dismissed his concerns, blinded by visions of wealth and a brighter future. They agreed to keep the discovery secret, leaving the mine with a handful of diamonds to sell. Yet, a nagging sense of unease followed them out into the sunlight. This was just the beginning of their journey, one that would test their friendship, morals, and courage in ways they never imagined. The trio sat huddled in Lerato's small bedroom, their loot spread out on the bed. Each diamond sparkled under the faint light of a single bulb hanging from the ceiling. The excitement of their discovery had not waned, but now they faced the challenge of selling the diamonds without attracting attention. Sipho's older cousin Temba worked in a nearby town and was known for knowing people. With hesitation, Sipho suggested they reach out to him. Lerato and Nomsa exchanged uneasy glances, unsure of trusting an outsider. However, the lure of quick money outweighed their fears. Sipho promised to handle the arrangements, and they all agreed to meet the next afternoon. When the time came, Temba arrived at Lerato's house. His sharp eyes quickly assessed the diamonds, and he whistled low. "These are the real deal," he said, pocketing the gems. "I'll get you a good price, but remember, this kind of thing comes with risks." Temba's words hung heavy in the air as he left. Days passed, and the trio's nerves grew taut. When Temba finally returned, he handed them an envelope stuffed with cash. Their joy was palpable, but it was also fleeting. They knew this was just the start of a dangerous game. Flush with cash for the first time in their lives, Lerato, Nomsa, and Sipho experienced a rush of excitement. They treated their families to new clothes and hearty meals, savoring the smiles that replaced the usual worry on their loved ones' faces. For a moment, it felt like all their struggles were worth it. However, the newfound wealth also brought complications. Sipho's younger brother began asking questions about where the money came from, while Nomsa's mother, ever the skeptic, warned her daughter to be careful with sudden fortune. Lerato, meanwhile, found herself growing increasingly paranoid. She imagined shadows watching her every move, and every knock at the door made her jump. She threw herself into her arms, weeping and tears pouring down her face. Despite their unease, the trio couldn't resist the temptation to return to the mine. They convinced themselves that one more trip would solidify their futures. But as they prepared for their next venture, the reality of their actions began to sink in. They were breaking the law, risking not just their safety, but also the trust of their families. As they stood at the mine's entrance once more, Lerato's resolve wavered, but the thought of her family's struggles pushed her forward. "Just one more time," she whispered, hoping it wasn't a promise she'd regret. The second trip to the mine yielded even more diamonds, but it also deepened the rift within the group. Sipho's constant warnings grew louder, and Nomsa began to question whether they were doing the right thing. Lerato, however, was consumed by her vision of a better life. She brushed off their concerns, urging them to focus on the potential rewards. Tensions came to a head during a heated argument in Lerato's kitchen. "You're not thinking about the consequences," Sipho snapped. "What if we get caught? What if someone else finds out?" "And what if we don't?" Lerato shot back, her voice rising. "We have a chance to change everything. Don't you see that? Nomsa tried to mediate, but the damage was done. The camaraderie that once bonded them was fraying, and doubts crept into their minds. Still, they pushed forward, each silently questioning how much longer they could sustain their secret operation. Lerato's life took another turn when Jabu, a fellow student and her longtime crush, began asking questions. Known for his sharp mind and passion for justice, Jabu noticed the sudden changes in Lerato's demeanor and the way she avoided certain topics. "You've been acting different," he said one afternoon as they walked home together. "Is something going on?" Lerato hesitated, torn between confiding in him and protecting their secret. She shrugged, offering a vague excuse about family matters. But Jabu wasn't convinced. His curiosity was piqued, and Lerato knew it was only a matter of time before he started digging deeper. Back home, Lerato's anxiety grew. She couldn't afford to let Jabu or anyone else uncover their secret. Yet a small part of her yearned to share the burden with someone who might understand. The weight of her choices was becoming harder to bear, and she began to wonder if the price of their newfound wealth was too high. One evening, as Lerato and her friends gathered to discuss their next move, Temba arrived unannounced. His demeanor had shifted. He was tense and agitated. "We have a problem," he began, his voice low. "Someone's been asking questions about diamonds in the area. You need to lie low for a while." Panic rippled through the group. Lerato's heart sank as she realized their secret might not be safe anymore. Temba's warning wasn't just about avoiding suspicion. It was a stark reminder of the dangers they were now entangled in. "Who's asking?" Sipho demanded, his face pale. Temba shook his head. "I don't know, but it's someone with power. You've made more noise than you think." That night, sleep eluded Lerato. Thoughts of the mine, the diamonds, and the shadowy figures hunting for answers filled her mind. She began to see the path they'd chosen for what it truly was: a minefield of greed, lies, and danger. The next day, she resolved to confront her friends. "We need to stop," she said, her voice firm. "It's not worth the risk anymore." Nomsa looked conflicted, while Sipho nodded, relief washing over his face. But the hardest part would be walking away from the one thing that had offered them hope and freedom. The diamonds that once promised salvation now felt like a curse they couldn't escape. Jabu was not one to ignore his instincts. Lerato's evasiveness lingered in his mind, and when he noticed Themba's unusual visits, his curiosity turned into suspicion. One afternoon, Jabu decided to follow Themba discreetly. His trail led him to a quiet spot near the edge of town, where Themba handed over a shady-looking man. The interaction unsettled Jabu. Back at school, he observed Lerato more closely. Her exhaustion and unease confirmed his fears that something was seriously wrong. Determined to help her, Jabu confronted Lerato after class. "I know something's going on," he said. "You don't have to face it alone." Lerato hesitated, guilt and fear clouding her judgment. But as Jabu's sincerity broke through her defenses, she relented slightly. "It's complicated," she whispered. "You wouldn't understand." Jabu's concern only deepened. He decided to uncover the truth. vowing silently to protect Lerato at all costs. The stakes were higher than he imagined, and the secrets he was about to uncover would test his courage and resolve. He took Lerato to the emergency room and offered to test the man's resolve. Themba's warnings proved prophetic. A group of men arrived in the township, asking questions about diamonds and putting the community on edge. Lerato and her friends realized these men were not to be trifled with. The trio convened in desperation, debating their next move. "We need to give them something," Sipho suggested, fear evident in his voice. "Otherwise, they'll come after us." Lerato's mind raced. The thought of handing over their hard-earned diamonds was unbearable. But the alternative, endangering their lives and families, was worse. They agreed to negotiate with the men through Themba, hoping to buy themselves some time. When the meeting took place, the men made their intentions clear. They wanted a cut of any future profits. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but the trio had no choice. They left the meeting feeling defeated, their dreams of freedom slipping further out of reach. The tension between Lerato, Nomsa, and Sipho reached its breaking point. Nomsa's guilt over their actions grew unbearable, and she lashed out during a heated argument. "This isn't worth it," she cried. "We're destroying ourselves." Lerato, torn between her ambition and her friend's well-being, struggled to maintain unity. Sipho, on the other hand, grew increasingly withdrawn, his fear morphing into resentment. The once strong bond that held them together was now a fragile thread. Meanwhile, Jabu's investigation brought him closer to the truth. He stumbled upon the abandoned mine during one of his searches and realized the scope of Lerato's secret. Shocked but determined, he resolved to confront her, believing he could help salvage the situation. Jabu cornered Lerato after school, his discovery evident in his eyes. "I know about the mine," he said firmly. "You need to stop this before it's too late." Jabu clasped his hand in his. "I won't if it means collecting fish," he thought. Lerato's defenses crumbled. The weight of her secret, combined with her guilt and fear, overwhelmed her. She broke down, recounting everything to Jabu. Her voice trembled as she spoke of the diamonds, the danger, and the strain on her friendships. Jabu listened intently, his expression a mix of concern and determination. "You're in over your head," he said gently. "But it's not too late to make things right. Let me help you." Lerato nodded reluctantly, a glimmer of hope piercing her despair. With Jabu's support, she began to see a way out of the mess she had created, though the path ahead would not be easy. With Jabu's guidance, Lerato and her friends devised a plan to cut ties with the mine and the dangerous men pursuing them. They decided to gather the remaining diamonds for one final sale, intending to use the money to secure their families' futures and leave the mine behind forever. However, executing their plan required careful coordination and immense courage. Jabu acted as their lookout, ensuring no one followed them to the mine. Nomsa and Sipho, though hesitant, rallied behind Lerato, their bond rekindling as they worked together toward a common goal. As they descended into the mine for the last time, a sense of finality hung in the air. The journey had changed them all, testing their resilience and forcing them to confront their deepest fears. They knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but for the first time in weeks, they felt a glimmer of hope for a brighter future. The final descent into the mine was supposed to be their last. They worked swiftly, collecting the most valuable diamonds they could find. However, as they prepared to leave, a chilling voice echoed through the tunnels. "Going somewhere?" It was Themba, flanked by two of the men who had been asking questions in the township. The group froze, fear gripping them. Lerato stepped forward, trying to maintain her composure. "We're done with this," she said firmly. "We're leaving." Themba sneered. "You think it's that simple? You've made a fortune from this place and now you want to walk away without giving us our share?" He gestured to his accomplices. "You owe us." His voice trembled as he protested. "We've already given you diamonds. We've paid." Themba's smile turned cold. Before anyone could react, one of the men grabbed Nomsa, pulling her aside as leverage. "Maybe this will make you think twice," he said, his grip tight on her arm. Panic surged through the group. Jabu, who had been hiding nearby as their lookout, emerged from the shadows. "Let her go," he demanded, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. The confrontation escalated as Jabu tried to negotiate with Themba. Meanwhile, Lerato's mind raced, searching for a way to turn the tables. The diamonds that had once symbolized hope were now at the center of a standoff that could cost them everything, including their lives. A large package of them was found in the palm of the first hanger during the attack. Lerato tried to find the first hanger. Tension filled the dimly lit mine as Themba and his men refused to back down. "You don't have a choice," Themba hissed, his eyes narrowing at the group. "Hand over everything, or you'll regret it." Lerato's pulse pounded in her ears as she glanced at Nomsa, whose terrified eyes pleaded for a solution. Jabu, standing firm, began to edge closer to one of the tunnel walls. "This isn't the way," he said, his voice steady but measured. "Think about what you're doing. You'll gain nothing if you hurt us." Themba smirked, but his men's grip on Nomsa tightened. Lerato, drawing courage from desperation, whispered to Sipho, "We need a distraction." Sipho nodded, his trembling hands clutching a rock he had picked up earlier. He paused. In a sudden, coordinated move, Sipho hurled the rock at one of the men, hitting him in the shoulder. The man stumbled, releasing Nomsa. Chaos erupted as Jabu lunged toward Themba, knocking him off balance. Lerato grabbed Nomsa's hand, pulling her toward the tunnel entrance, while Sipho and Jabu held off the men. The group raced through the mine, their footsteps echoing like thunder. Behind them, Themba and his men gave chase, shouting threats that spurred them to run faster. As they neared the entrance, Jabu shouted, "Go! Don't look back!" Lerato, Nomsa, and Sipho burst into the open air. The fresh air hit Lerato like a wave of relief as she and her friends scrambled out of the mine. Nomsa collapsed onto the ground, gasping for breath, while Sipho leaned against a nearby rock, his hands trembling. Jabu emerged moments later, his face smeared with dirt and a determined fire in his eyes. "We can't stop here," he urged, his voice urgent. "They'll be right behind us." Lerato nodded, her chest heaving. "The forest," she said, pointing to the dense trees nearby. "If we can lose them there, we'll have a chance." Themba's voice echoed from within the mine. "You can't run forever." His words sent a chill through the group, but they pushed themselves to their feet and bolted toward the tree line. The forest was dark and tangled, the thick canopy overhead filtering the moonlight into faint patches. The group moved as quietly as they could, the crunch of leaves and snapping of twigs betraying their presence. Lerato's mind raced as she tried to think of their next move. They couldn't keep running indefinitely. "We need to split up," Jabu said, his voice low but firm. "It's the only way to confuse them." "No," Lerato protested. "We're stronger together. They'll catch us all if we stay like this," Jabu countered. "We'll meet back at the old chapel near the school. It's our safest bet." Reluctantly, the group agreed. Lerato and Nomsa took one path, while Jabu and Sipho went another. Each step away from her friends felt like a tether breaking, but Lerato knew they had no choice. As the sounds of pursuit faded, Lerato glanced at Nomsa. The group emerged from the mine, gasping for breath, their hearts pounding like war drums. The cool night air was a sharp contrast to the oppressive tension inside the tunnels. Jabu stumbled out last, his face streaked with dirt, but his determination unwavering. "We can't stop here," Jabu said, his voice hoarse. "They'll come after us." Lerato looked at the others. Nomsa clung to her arm, her eyes wide with fear, while Sipho stood trembling but resolute. "The chapel," Lerato whispered. "We'll hide there." The group took off, weaving through the forest under the cover of darkness. Branches scratched their faces and arms, but they pressed on, guided by the faint moonlight. Behind them, shouts echoed through the trees. Temba and his men in hot pursuit. Finally, the chapel came into view, a crumbling structure long abandoned, but a beacon of hope in their desperate flight. They ducked inside, barricading the door with broken pews. The dim interior offered little solace, but for now, it was safety. Jabu leaned against the wall, catching his breath. "We need a plan. They won't give up." Lerato nodded, her mind racing. She pulled out the bag of diamonds they had risked so much for. "We'll give this to the police," she said. "It's the only way. If we hand over the diamonds and tell them everything, maybe we can end this." Nomsa looked hesitant. "What if they don't believe us? What if we get arrested?" "It's better than being hunted," Sipho said quietly, his voice steady for the first time that night. The group agreed. At dawn, they made their way to the local police station, the weight of their choices heavy on their shoulders. The officers listened as Lerato recounted their story, their expressions shifting from disbelief to grim understanding. The diamonds were confiscated, and a team was dispatched to apprehend Temba and his men. None of these men were directly responsible for the accidents that confronted them, but the diamonds were critical, since they held the secrets of both radio and the devices. In the weeks that followed, life in the township began to return to normal. Lerato and her friends were given a stern warning but spared formal charges, their cooperation crucial in dismantling a dangerous criminal network. The diamonds were gone, but so was the fear that had haunted them. As Lerato walked home one evening, the sun setting over the horizon, she felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in months. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, it felt full of possibility. She looked at her friends, their bonds stronger than ever, despite everything they had endured. "We made it," Nomsa said softly, a small smile breaking through her exhaustion. "For now." Lerato nodded. "We did. And now we start again." Together they turned toward the horizon, ready to rebuild their lives and find a new path forward, one free from greed, danger, and fear. The proscribed meditation teachers understood that the desire to find love and happiness is the first movement in one's spiritual journey.